I think it's hilarious that my garden video time is also 7 a.m. on Saturday before I've showered or done anything, but that's when my kids are sleeping, so this is what you get. I'm gonna do two updates today. One, I want to talk about how the greenhouses did with the cold weather last week, and then two, just share some placement challenges I have or think I'm going to have with how I set up my garden. So I got these greenhouse covers from gardeners.com, and honestly, when we were doing the build of the garden, they're driving me absolutely crazy. One of the zippers broke. We were having issues with them just flying across the yard. It was really windy and they just wouldn't stay in place. My husband built a couple modifications to our beds. He added these screws so that we could kind of tuck the pole underneath those on one side, and then you'll notice we also are there's bungee cords strategically placed in the beds that are helping to hold it down. But you'll see here too that, like, they're not the most well constructed things. But with that said, we had very cold weathers, like 32 to 34 overnight for 3 nights last week, and these held up so beautifully. I came out in the morning. In fact, a lot of things even started to germinate during that cold spell. And you'd open them up and they were easily 10 to 15 degrees warmer inside the greenhouses. So they did what they were intended to do, which is fantastic. Okay, let's talk about a couple placement issues. So this bed I actually think will work out pretty good, but how I try to set this up is this way is south facing for me. And so I tried to do smaller things. So you'll see our onions here. I just sowed some carrots here, and then we have our pepper plants, and then we have which I just put in yesterday, super excited about. And then we have some tomato plants in the back. And so I was trying to go kind of short to long in general, and I think in this one, because everything is kind of cool with warm weathers, I can keep the greenhouse on longer, and everything is going to go along and work just fine. In this one, I already have some challenges. So a lot of my broccoli and cauliflower, which looks great in the morning, when the temperatures get above like 75, the leaves just look so sickly by the end of the day. And I think they're getting overheated. And so what's great about these greenhouse covers that I got is there's also a shade cloth cover to put on it. And these really need the shade cloth right now. However, the tomato plants obviously don't need the shade cloth. They would probably be better without it. One thing looking at these tomato plants is they're doing fine and it hasn't been overly warm. So I might just make them shade to benefit the broccoli for now, but at some point, kind of the temperature needs of these two plants are going to be a problem. The other thing with the back is I had bigger tomato cages, these green ones on, but when I had to put the greenhouse on for the colder weathers, I had to exchange them for smaller tomato cages. So you'll see they're already kind of outgrowing these smaller cages, and I want to put the big ones back on, but my shade cloth won't fit on top of the tomatoes when I do that. So I'm just trying to figure out what's better to get those on or to shade the broccoli. So I'll have to figure that out. The other thing is that I planted chives in 2 beds, one in the back of this bed by the tomato plants, and then I have one in the next bed that I'll show you before learning that chives are invasive. So I'm going to be watching them closely. What I heard on YouTube is as soon as they flower, you want to pluck the flowers off immediately. So I'm hoping to control it, but I think I might end up moving those into containers or at least into one bed so that I can avoid risk of having those spread into 2 beds. When I was planting, I really didn't notice the difference between my broccoli plants and my Brussels sprout plants, but now they're very obvious, right? So these are the broccolis and these are the Brussels. These Brussels are on the south facing side of this whole thing, and the broccolis are as well. They're way too crowded. I tried to fit in too much, and I'm afraid that they're gonna shade out. This is already kind of a shady spot by the fence, that they're gonna shade out the beans and the peas that I want to grow in the back wall here. And so we're gonna see how this one goes, but this is probably the one I'm most nervous about just getting out of control really quickly. It already feels like it's starting to get out of control, so I don't know what to do about that. And then back here, this is going to be, cucumbers, and you'll see I built this kind of climbing fence in the back for peas and beans. I know this climbing fence isn't going to be tall enough, but again, I wanted to keep the greenhouse cover on as long as I could. So I'm going to need to figure out, especially with the beans, like how out of control they get if they end up coming up. And then there's that other group of chives I was talking about. I hope you enjoyed that little update. I'll try to give an update again in 2 to 3 weeks with how things are going. Appreciate it, and I hope you're staying safe, healthy, and home. Bye.